I'm David Miller, Senior Fellow at the Carnegie Endowment. Welcome to Annahar.
Glad to be
President Biden, President Biden's decision to pause munition shipment to Israel seemed aimed to put pressure on Netanyahu to change course. Will it work?
First of all, it was a discrete application of influence designed to pause one military shipment of high-velocity, high-value munitions. At the same time, the United States is providing $26 billion in a congressional appropriation and an additional $780 million in foreign military-financed military equipment, which the Israelis will buy from the United States. So this was not a major break in the U.S.-Israeli relationship. It was designed to send a signal, I think, to amplify publicly what the administration has been saying privately on one discrete issue, which is Rafah, and the administration's concern that a major massive ground campaign without making proper preparations for the resident Palestinian population would end up being a terrible tragedy. It could kill thousands of Palestinians. Whether or not the Israelis got the message is unclear. They've started to move into eastern and some of the southern neighborhoods in Rafah, but they've yet to enter the major part of the city. So we'll have to see.
It means you don't see any similarities between this decision and President Reagan's decision in 1982.
President Reagan's decision? No,
Yeah.
I think this was, first of all, it's occurring in a completely different set of circumstances. Ronald Reagan was a very pro-Israeli president, dealing with an Israeli prime minister, Menachem Begin, who had just signed a full treaty of peace between Israel and Egypt. Begin was a member of the Likud, but he was not an extremist, at least as he governed. You're dealing with the most right-wing extreme government in the history of the state of Israel on one hand, and you're dealing with an American political system that is fundamentally divided on the question of Israel, with a Republican Party being the Israel can do no wrong party, and the Democrats deeply divided. So this, and I would argue it's a crisis of confidence between the administration and this Israeli government. It started with the judicial overhaul, which the administration opposed. It continued with the efforts of this Israeli government to pursue policies on the West Bank that were annexationist in everything but name. And it's continued this fundamental difference with respect to how the Israeli government has operated in Gaza. So I think we're not on the cusp of a rupture of relations. This is not going to provide a fundamental break, but it's extremely worrisome. I would think that those who are supportive of a very close and strong U.S.-Israeli relationship should be concerned, because the two fundamental drivers of the U.S.-Israeli relationship, shared values, the perception that America shares values with Israel, and a high coincidence of interest, both of those drivers are now under increasing stress. So while I wouldn't anticipate a break in the relationship.
It will be overcome easily?
Hard to say. A lot of it depends on Israeli policy and Israeli actions.
Not on American internal policies as well, the dynamics of...
If the presumptive nominee of the Republican Party is elected for another term, then I think it's unclear to me which way the U.S.-Israeli relationship is going to go. I think there'll be a lot of reduced pressure from a Trump administration, for example, on the current Israeli government, should that come to pass. But at the same time, should Joe Biden be reelected, and should there be leadership changes in Israel and a ceasefire that would open the pathway in Gaza to something that would create security and prosperity for Gaza's 2.3 million people, and an acknowledgement by a new Israeli government that there needs to be a political horizon, that is to say, Gaza first can't be Gaza only, I could see a more practical pathway and even the prospects of, under certain circumstances, of an Israeli-Saudi normalization and a regional initiative. But that depends on factors that are right now by no means in place.
You mean that Gaza is affecting as well the dynamics, the dynamics inside the US campaign now?
Well, it's unclear. The election isn't until November 5th. And it's really unclear why Americans will vote for who they will vote for on that day. I don't think Gaza figures prominently. If you believe the polls, even among the young cohort, 18 to 29-year-olds, when they're asked how important is the Gaza war in your calculations, it's number 15, way down at the bottom of the list. Climate is more important. Democracy is more important.
Even though with all these protests at the universities.
The protests are occurring at the most elite several of the most elite universities in the country. They don't represent the majority of 18 to 29-year-olds in the United States. But again, there are other reasons why the 18 to 29-year-olds have a problem with Joe Biden. Certainly, that's true of young African Americans and even young Hispanic voters. Inflation is a huge problem.
Yeah,
the
economy
economy
is the first factor that will affect.
President's age is a problem. So it's unclear.
And do you see a US Saudi pact, security pact close?
I think that the bilateral pact, which is composed of a mutual defense pact, as well as a decision to support Saudi Arabia's incipient nuclear reactor, reactors or reactor, I think that's very close. But again, the administration is looking for Senate confirmation. They want a treaty, a mutual defense treaty. That's tricky without a ceasefire in Gaza and significant commitments on the part of this Israeli government to a Palestinian state. And we're quite a ways away from even the possibility of that taking place. It would require a decision on the part of this Israeli government that would probably mean the government's dissolution, maybe new elections. So by any count, time is not an ally of this process. Time is an enemy of the process. And I don't think the administration believed that we would be where we are, almost June, and we're far from creating a ceasefire or any sort of Palestinian governance, non-Hamas governance in Gaza.
It could be in the next with the next administration.
Well, I think if Joe Biden is reelected, it's going to be hard. I spent the better part of my career trying to help Israelis and Palestinians find a way to reach agreements on any number of issues. I was at the last serious effort in Camp David, which is already 24 years ago. And even then, on the 5 core issues, Jerusalem border, security, refugees, and recognition that all claims have been adjudicated, the gaps between Yasser Arafat and Ehud Barak at the time were enormous. And the situation has only worsened.